Good morning, Santa Clarita. Good morning. Welcome in. It is good to have you. Happy Friday. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers. I am Matt Watson, your host. If you're peering in on Facebook Live, there's our logo. How about that? Isn't that beautiful? Our folks from Creative Services created that amazing graphic there for us. This special edition of Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers, is brought to you by KHTS in collaboration with SCVI and iLead Charter Schools. We come to you live each Monday through Friday at 9 a.m., providing support and updates on your distance learning journey. I know we're now into summer break, but school is always looming. In fact, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We've got educational expert consultant on the line, Renee Marshall. She'll be joining us in just a minute, and we're going to be talking about what school could look like when we start back up in the fall. I do want to make sure that as you're heading into this summer, I know a lot of you want to help keep your kids' skills sharp. You want to keep them active and engaged. We've got a lot of great activities for your kids on our website. You know, that website that we launched back when distance learning started, homeschoolinganswers.com. We started filling that up with plenty of resources that we've gone through and weeded out the stuff that's going to charge you. We've weeded out the stuff that really doesn't have a whole lot of value so that you don't have to worry about it. And we curated everything by grade level and by subject area. We've also got plenty of parenting tips for you, things to help you maintain the sanity around home and just build a happier, healthier, emotional home. We have a lot of Love and Logic tips on there. I'm a huge fan of Love and Logic. I tell people without joking, without hyperbole, Love and Logic has saved lives around my home. And, you know, that may make you giggle a little bit, but it's a true story. So head on over to homeschoolinganswers.com and check it out. Stuff for you, stuff for your kids, and it will be up all summer long. As I said, happy Friday. Happy Friday. Super excited that it is a Friday and a lot going on this Friday. Even though, as Tori just said a couple minutes ago, not a whole lot going on the freeways out there. So those of you that are heading into the office, enjoy that light drive. Just finished rolling up my sleeping bag. Seems like I did spend the night here last night. We had our special broadcast last night, Finding Closure. It was a nice 1-hour sit-down with our show's official licensed marriage and family therapist, Christina DeBray. And we talked about the school shooting out at Saugus High School, as well as a lot of the other traumas that our kids and our adults have been through, for that matter, over the last 8 to 10 months. It's been a rough school year for all of us. And we talked to Christina about some of the things that we've been through, some of the things that we can expect kind of coming into the summer. You know, our kids are going to experience a little bit of downtime, and that's good. They need some time to rest, some time to get out into the backyard and play and head down to the park, take the dog for a walk. They enjoy they deserve their downtime as well, but with that downtime, their brain is going to start processing a lot of this trauma that they've been through. And we need to keep our eyes open, and we need to stay aware of it. Christina taught us some of those red flags and yellow flags that we need to keep our eyes on. That podcast is up and available on the KHTS website, hometownstation.com. Go ahead and check it out. I think you'll find it valuable. Christina is really good at what she does, and we had a great talk last night. It was good. We have another great show today. As I mentioned before, we've got educational expert Renee Marshall on the line. Renee joined us about a week ago, maybe a little bit more than a week ago, to help us sort through the state guidelines for schools to reopen this fall. But there was so much to discuss, and we had to go so fast that we didn't get through it all. So we decided to have her back today. But I wanted to touch on a couple of other things that we're celebrating today and this weekend. I know you all know, or at least I hope you all know. Don't tell me that you forgot about Dad. You know, Big T was in yesterday sharing some fun facts about Father's Day, and Dad can get forgotten from time to time. You know, back when we had regular telephones, not everyone had a telephone in their back pocket. Interesting fun fact that Mother's Day was the biggest day for phone calls in the calendar year, and Father's Day was the biggest day for collect phone calls. You see how we do, Dad, sometimes? So, make sure that you're remembering Dad. Get out early and get a card, because if you're heading out on Sunday to pick up a Father's Day card, you're going to find the shelves a little bit bare. We are also celebrating Juneteenth today. Do you know what Juneteenth is? It is June 19th, and it is considered the official date of emancipation for the black slaves in America. You know, when President Lincoln struck his pen and signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it was seen as pretty symbolic. You know, it didn't do a whole lot because obviously those states in the Confederacy that had slaves didn't recognize his authority, and so they were in no hurry to free the slaves, and it took until several years, believe it or not, several years later, for some of the slaves in Texas there to be finally alerted to the fact that they were free and to be liberated from those plantations and from their chains of bondage. And so we celebrate June 19th every year as that final Emancipation Day. Oftentimes it's considered African American Independence Day. It is Juneteenth. I was actually listening on the news yesterday, and there is a movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday. I think that's certainly worthy of it. It's finally, when I'm going to misquote Thomas Jefferson, but he talked about this plague on our society that was slavery. When we finally threw those physical and metaphorical chains off of our society and started moving towards, well, what we haven't achieved yet, which is total racial equity in our country. So happy Juneteenth. Let's go ahead and move into this Juneteenth Friday. Again, like I said, we're being joined this morning by Renee Marshall. Renee is a young but dynamic educator. She's quickly become renowned across the state of California for her deep understanding of a myriad of educational topics. You know, she's worked in elementary school and in middle school. She's worked with teacher preparation programs, but she's got such an understanding of education in California that she's now moved into a consultant role, and individual schools, private schools, public schools, and different organizations around the state consult with Renee because of her insights in education. Renee received her bachelor's in psychology and her master's degree in elementary education and teaching from UC Santa Cruz. Can't find a better place to go to school than UC Santa Cruz, I suppose. She earned an additional master's degree in educational leadership and administration from CSUN. Renee has been recognized with an Outstanding Educator Award, the PTA Golden Apple Service Award, the Santa Clarita Valley Mothers of Multiples Heart Award, and as one of Santa Clarita Valley's 40 under 40. And for those of you that have been around Santa Clarita for a while, you know how prestigious that award is. She's also been honored as Castaic Middle School's Teacher of the Month. She's received a PTA Service Award and was named Castaic Union School District's Teacher of the Month as well. She's worked with the Santa Clarita Valley Education Foundation, California Community College teacher preparation programs, and locally at College of the Canyons. Welcome, Renee. Thanks for coming back.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. It's good to have you. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to go back over some of those finer points of the state guidelines. As you know, it was I think it was 2 weeks ago today that they kind of did a soft release. They did a full launch the following Monday. The state superintendent, Tony Thurman, as well as the California Department of Public Health issued the state guidelines, and we'll talk about that in a minute because they are just guidelines. They are not hard and fast rules. They're guidelines under which schools can open up, okay? So let's talk about how schools are going to be handling kind of each of these different finer points and how families can handle each of these as well, okay?
Absolutely. I also want to point out, Matt, on the Facebook Live feed, I have put the link to Department of Education. So if anybody wants to get that Stronger Together guidebook and have a copy for themselves, they should be able to access it easily from our Facebook Live feed. I also wanted to mention, I put up the link for the appendices that they have at the end of this document, because there is a wealth of information. If you are willing to dive into this and click on all these different resources, you're going to find so much information. It really is incredibly helpful. So I put both of those in the chat, so hopefully people who are on right now will have a chance to check those out.
Absolutely, and if you're not sure what Renee's talking about, just go to Facebook and search for KHTS Radio. There you're going to find that salmon-colored banner. That's our Facebook Live feed, and Renee has posted both of those things right there in the chat. It is so important for us as parents to be informed as to what's going on with our kids' education. In the end, our kids' education is our responsibility. We can't just abdicate that responsibility to the schools, although we've got some great schools here in the Santa Clarita Valley. We need to make sure that we are informed and involved. So a couple of points that I want to make before we get started, and that is, as I mentioned before, Renee, these are guidelines. School districts and schools have autonomy and discretion. That's something that our state superintendent, Tony Thurman, was very clear on, that these were not the rules by which everyone had to play. These were guidelines. They were intended as supports to help get the conversation started under the authority of the individual school boards. And then lastly, Renee, I wanted to point out that you are an expert consultant, but you're not the policymaker. You're not the one that gets to decide, right? So this isn't
not
how
yet.
Schools must act. Not yet. That's coming soon. Great.
I will tell you, though, I've had the fortune of, last summer, I was on a series of transition teams for Superintendent Tony Thurman. Mm-hmm. And so I've actually had the opportunity to go up to Department of Ed and be able to contribute directly to some of the documents that come out statewide. So I'm hoping one day to be up there even more, but I try my best to have some impact. But no, I did not write the guidebook. And I agree with you, Matt. These are not mandates, and that's something that everybody needs to know. Another thing I feel like I've heard over and over when it comes together to Stronger Together in the guidebook for the safe reopening of our California schools, this is the beginning of the conversation. You know, this isn't the end. And that's what I think is really important for families to understand right now. This is a great time to talk to your schools, to talk to your boards, and to let them know what your opinion is about what school should look like going into the future. And we're so lucky because so many of our districts have sent out surveys. Right. And so they are actively looking to get parent feedback and student voice into this planning that we're doing right now. We're in uncharted territory. I think that's important to point out, too. We've never been in a pandemic before. And so this is something very new.
Yep, and I do love how progressive our state has been in allowing so much voice for the parents. So basically right now we as parents have two options. We can speak up, let our voice be heard, let the districts and the schools know what it is that we need, what it is that we think and feel, or we can stay quiet and let others decide. So
absolutely, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
We don't want to do that. And so many of the decisions that will take place, they come down to their LEA, the local education agency, and that group making its own decisions. But it's important to note the school districts, they're responsible for providing an optimal learning environment that's going to work best for each family. So our school districts, they're still determining their own calendar. They're still, looking at the different models of education that have been presented by California Department of Ed to see what's going to work best for their children and their families. And they're going to accommodate everything they're able to accommodate. So we have to know that, our education system, they're partners with us as parents and as, and as students. And it's important to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important that we partner with them again. So make sure that you are informed and make sure that you are vocal. So Renee, let's talk about some of these guidelines. First of all, the guidebook says that classrooms should be laid out so that students can stay 6 feet away from others while they're in class. How feasible do you feel that is?
It depends on who you talk to. And I think part of that is something we need to bring up again in this conversation is the kind of mentality people have going into this. I have a very good friend of mine who's a teacher in the Hart District, and he literally spaced his class out 6 feet around each desk to make sure that he could accommodate all of his students. And he normally has 28 students in his class, and spacing out the desk 6 feet by 6 feet, he's going to fit 15 kids in his class. Okay. And so if we even just stick with that guideline of the 6 feet, which is highly recommended, and we know it's the best practice in terms of keeping students and staff safe moving into fall, I mean, we're going to really need to look at what do classrooms look like. Another thing that's important, they mention in this guiding document, the word classroom is going to be redefined. And so, for instance, if you have a class where you have a lot of people that want to engage in face-to-face, you might find that class happening in a multi-purpose room or happening in a cafeteria or happening in a larger space. And I think that's one thing, that we need to be prepared for. So in terms of the 6 feet distance, Matt, we're going to see a lot more. We're going to see smaller classes. Out of a necessity, we're going to have to go into smaller class size. And in order to do that, we're going to have to to choose one of the different models that they're presenting to our community through the Stronger Together guidelines.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those models because we've got some interesting options there as well. But I'm thinking about, I think about high school, I think about junior high school, and okay, you've got your friend that's distancing his desk 6 feet apart, and you can do that even in 5th grade and perhaps in 3rd grade. But if I've got 3 kindergartners in a classroom, is it going to be possible to keep them 6 feet apart?
As somebody who's been a prior kindergarten and preschool teacher, here's what I can tell you. Never underestimate the competencies of a child.
Okay.
We tend to think that a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old doesn't have the capacity to understand the things that older people understand. And the truth of the matter is, you will be shocked at how much kids can understand and how much kids can cooperate. And when we explain to children that this is about health and safety and that there's rules that are in place by the people who make the rules for health for the whole state of California, we're going to see kids start to understand. And we'll see teachers adapt. So we'll probably, I'm thinking a kindergarten classroom, Matt, I'm going to have songs related to being 6 feet apart. I'm going to probably have some sort of dance where my kids put their arms out. If people put their arms out, well, adult-sized people, you've almost got a 6-foot span right there. Children, they probably have about a 3-foot span. So if we can start teaching them, you have to have this minimum space around you. I mean, you might not even, teachers might even do some sort of imaginative play where the kids start pretending they're in like a bubble and they're walking around in their safety bubble. Or, I mean, there's all sorts of ways we can approach it with children that can make it realistic. It can make it fun. It can make it engaging. This is going to be a challenge. And so we have to look at it where we say, is this like a challenge where we're going to be defeated, or is this a challenge where it's an opportunity? And we're going to teach children, how do you rise to an occasion? We're talking about rising to an occasion. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Let's be the optimal community that supports our schools and works together to figure out what's going to be best for our kids and our families. We have that ability to do that. But like you were saying earlier, parent voice, we need parents to be talking to their board members. We need them to be talking to their principals and their administrators at their school site and at the district level. Please make sure you're answering those surveys, because that's the way your voice is going to be heard. So the 6 feet, I think it's doable. I really do. I've got to be honest. I personally, and as somebody who's been a kindergarten teacher, I'm less concerned about the younger children as I am about our high school students. What do we do when we've got a high school that houses 2,000 people in it?
Yeah.
How do we keep six foot distance when we've got 2,400 people?
And they're starting to develop boyfriends and girlfriends and all kinds of things like that. That is really interesting. And I taught my students and my own children at home, attitude is everything. So I think you're right. I think kindergartners can rise to that occasion if parents come with a positive attitude, if their teachers come with a positive attitude. And I'm going to issue a challenge to our kindergarten friends, our kindergarten teaching friends. How about a Men Without Hats parody, huh? That safety dance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Matt, let's make it.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready right now.
Let's do it. Okay. We got about 8 weeks to crunch this out. Let's do it, Renee.
Totally. But you know what? This comes back, though, to me also, like with the face coverings and the masks.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, too.
Because right now, for so many people, the masks are like a make-or-break situation with the schools. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fascinating hearing people go, if my child has to wear a mask, I am not going to send them into school. And don't get me wrong, there's so much emotion that's attached to this. Like, I get it. Mm-hmm. I get the emotion. But if all of the scientists and the health agencies are telling us in order to keep not just the kids but our families healthy, we need them to wear the mask. We just need to do it. And so much of it will be, how do we present it? If a school is requiring masks, then if a child doesn't or a staff member doesn't have one, they're going to have to provide one. I'm thinking, what about if we all took it into like a totally different degree and like contacted one of our local promotional companies and made fun school-wide masks. The kids could then have pride. Kids show pride when they show up in their school shirt. Yeah, why can't we have pride when you show up in your school mask? because you're showing I'm here to learn and I'm here to make sure that my community stays safe.
And we're
We
in a
just
time
have
of
to
trade-off.
reframe it.
Yeah, we're in a time of trade-off right now where,
It is.
if we want our kids to be safe and healthy, which all of us do, we're going to have to follow certain requirements, certain protocol, right? And so if I need my kid going on campus, then we're going to have to wear the mask. If the mask is a deal breaker, that's understandable. The schools you're going to have an option for keeping your child at home as well. So,
absolutely, and especially for our kids who are medically fragile or who have any sort of immune compromised situation going on. If we have students who can't wear masks, we absolutely will find ways to make sure that they can continue learning. And that's one of the joys of the different models that we're presenting, that the Department of Education is presenting. And honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of schools and a lot of districts that are going to offer more than one option. And so as a parent, you're going to have to make a decision and say what's going to be best for my child, but also what's going to be best for my family structure.
Renee, I want to get into those options and what the structures might possibly look like, what parents' options are going to be. We're talking this morning to educational expert Renee Marshall about the state guidelines on how schools can reopen next fall. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back from the commercial, Renee, we'll talk about those different educational formats, the options that parents are going to have. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers. I'm your host, Matt Watson, on your hometown station, KHTS.
At iLead Agua Dulce, we believe the most important thing a child can learn in school is who they are. Life's real tests are never standardized, which is why we've developed an individual-based curriculum that values exploration, cooperation, and creativity. As our learners grow, so do we. Our tuition-free charter school is currently enrolling grades TK through 7th and adding 8th grade in 2020. Your young learner will be immersed in a unique environment where possibility and self-discovery are at the core of every experience. The Agua Dulce campus features beautiful indoor and outdoor spaces for hands-on inspiration, including a robotics lab, a garden bed, a greenhouse, and a technology-based exploratorium. iLead Agua Dulce is conveniently located on the east side of the Santa Clarita Valley, just off the 14 freeway. Check out our homeschool options too. To schedule a campus tour or learn more about our programs, visit iLeadAguaDulce.org. We're enrolling now. iLead Schools. Free to think, inspired to lead.
Folks, this is your pancake speaking. If you look out your window, we're flying over IHOP's delicious international pancake combos.
Sweet tres leches.
A pancation wonderland with views of Belgian chocolate, tres leches, and vanilla spice.
Pancakes.
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 Pancakes. Let's back this thing up and take another look.
Go on a pancation with international pancakes at IHOP, starting at $4.99.
CBC Cleaning and Restoration is ready and waiting to clean and disinfect your home or business during these trying times. CBC is certified, OSHA trained, and insured for COVID-19. They are now offering 10% off services plus free disinfection application through June 30th. All staff wears full-on PPE, and all equipment is disinfected before and after every job. Have CBC clean your carpets, upholstery, and hard surface flooring. Voted best commercial and residential cleaning company in the Santa Clarita Valley year after year. To take advantage of the COVID-19 special or more information, call CBC at 294-2221. That's 294-2221.
Hi, this is Bob Schertz with the Way Out Recovery SCV, reminding you that during these unprecedented times, addiction and mental health do not take a break. If you or someone you love are struggling, please give us a call at 661-296-4444. We are open and here to help you during this time. Thanks.
Your hometown station.
KHTS is the only station I listen to.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers with Matt Watson. We're talking this morning with educational consultant and expert Renee Marshall about the state guidelines that were issued by State Superintendent Tony Thurmond, as well as the California Department of Public Health, on how schools can reopen next fall. And Renee and I are both such educational nerds. We just continued the conversation right through that commercial break. Had to have Patty's waving his arms at us going, all right, we're coming back from commercial. You got to do your radio thing. So, Renee, we were talking before the break about what the format is going to look like. We talked about masks. We talked about distancing and how that's going to happen. But what about, I know a lot of families are asking, am I going to be able to drop my kids off at school next year? I've got a job. What's that going to look like? You're a parent as well. You're dealing with these things also. I recognized over the commercial break that I have kind of a cop-out. My youngest just graduated from high school, so I don't have to deal with that anymore, and I have a lot of flexibility in my job. But let's talk about what schools might look like next year. I want to start with those extremes. First off, Renee, do you think that there are going to be any schools that simply go back to normal in August, where all of their kids are on campus Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, schools in?
Matt, I wish I could fully predict the future, because I'd probably be a lot richer than I am. But no, here's what I'm thinking. I think ideally schools would like to be in that format. I think when we look at our private schools, they're going to have more flexibility because the way that private schools make their rules and regulations are a little bit different than happen in a traditional school setting. But one of the things that I think that is really important to know is no matter what, things are not going to look the same in fall. I think it's important as educators that we think about the concept of our education system making progress, but not trying to be perfect right now. We're looking at, within the guideline presented from the California Department of Education in their Stronger Together document, they outline 4 different options for schools to potentially consider. And one of the things that they bring up that I think is really important for all of us to just kind of have in the back of our minds is, one of the things that they're saying is it is highly possible that the school year will begin with one instructional model, and as the school year goes on and more information comes out about health and safety, schools may need to transition into a different model at some point during the school year. So, for instance, I'm going to throw something out there as a possibility. Keep in mind, we are almost 2 months out from the school year at this point, which sounds like a lot, but it's not a huge amount of time. But in COVID-19, 2 months is a lot of time, and a lot can change during that time.
We all remember how long March and April were. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Wasn't April like the longest month of your life?
April was the worst 6 months of my life, yeah.
But one of the things that they're talking about, so for instance, we might start with a blended model for the school year where maybe your child or your children's going for 2 days a week face-to-face on campus, and then they're spending 3 days a week at home doing distance learning. That's a possibility. There's all sorts of configurations that they might do, and I'm going to get into those. But one thing I want to point out that's stated in this guidelines that I think is really important, and this is a quote: as schools plan to reopen, the instructional schedule model chosen will become the foundation of a student's family's future experience in the school community. So basically what that is saying is whatever model the school or models that the school adopts, that is really going to be like a foundation for how that child is going to be learning moving forward. And we don't know how long it's going to be. So should we get into the couple models?
Yeah, definitely. You already mentioned the kind of 2 days on, 3 days off model where maybe half of the school will go to school Monday and Wednesday, the other half will attend Tuesday and Thursday. Everyone will be, not off school on those other 3 days, but they'll be working independently. It's a lot of us that have taught middle school understand the flipped classroom model where kids are going to be doing research. They're going to be doing a lot of their independent work during those other 3 days. We may have deep cleaning and professional learning on Fridays, things like that. So let's talk about the feasibility of that 2 days on, 3 days off model where half the school's going Monday, Wednesday, the other half's going Tuesday, Thursday. Is that something that you think is going to work and provide a decent quality education?
I think it really will, because one of the things I think that we need to remember is when we're talking about on and off, we're really talking about just distance learning versus face-to-face learning.
Right.
So in reality, those kids should be on all 5 days. But one of the biggest challenges that we heard from parents over and over and over this spring is the emotional and social well-being of their student, and how, since their child wasn't able to go face-to-face or have any interaction with people, we heard loudly in our community that children's emotional well-being is not in a good place right now. So the nice thing about this 2-day rotation is you're continuing to learn all 5 days, and you will have 3 of those days be a distance learning model. But your child then will have 2 days a week where they will go in face-to-face with those adults that they're talking to and engaging with those other days, and they will face-to-face with their friends, given with masks, 6 feet separation, all that. But kids are so tangible. Having 2 days a week to see the people that they know and care and trust, and to see them face-to-face versus virtually, that can make a significant impact positively on children. And I think the 2-day rotation blended learning model is a totally feasible model for all of us to use, especially because the way that this is set up, if at some point we're allowed to go 100% face-to-face, it will be a great foundation in terms of transitioning back to a full face-to-face model.
I agree.
So I think we're going to see a lot of school districts choose that one.
Yep.
I totally do, and so I think it's really important that we, like everybody, have that one really closely on your radar right now, because I think that's something that we're going to see.
Yep, and for parents with this model and with the other models as well, it's going to be really important for you to advocate for your needs. Make sure that your kids get on the rotation that you need. For example, if I've got 2 or 3 kids, it's going to be important that they're all on that same rotation, right? That all of my kids are going to school Monday, Wednesday, not 2 of them going Monday, Wednesday, the other one going Tuesday, Thursday. So make sure
Matt,
you're advocating for your needs.
I think that's plan A, but I don't know if realistically that can be what happens. I'm thinking, like, I have a friend who they have 10 kids in our education system in Santa Clarita, and they're in multiple districts, and I think maybe 2 of them aren't even in school yet. You know, like they span the whole age range.
Sure.
So I think about that family. How is it physically feasible to have 8 children in multiple districts on the same schedule?
That one is going to be tough. But again, important for parents to kind of do their best to get out in front of things. Right?
Absolutely, and really important for our Heart District and our 4 elementary districts to be having cross-district conversations.
Yeah.
Because as calendars are being determined, and like we need to align as much as possible to simplify the drive schedule for our parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they need to be able to work, and you can't be driving back and forth all day long. On the chat, I see somebody, Christine mentioned something just a moment ago. She said parents are scared, and I think that is absolutely what's going on, because right now it is like the fear of the unknown. None of us know exactly what this is going to look like.
Right.
But there's going to be some good that comes out of it too. Lisa chimed in on the chat saying, what about play in school? We're going to see a lot of different configurations. We're going to see a lot more of outdoor. We're going to see a lot more of learning outdoor, playing outdoor. I think we're going to see an uptick of play in schools. And I say that because we all know that the social emotional well-being, when kids have a chance to play and engage, it helps them. And so I think they work side by side.
Yeah. Listener Randy's also asking, how's this going to work for parents that need to work full-time? We'll talk about it next break, Renee, but short answer, Randy, work with your employer and work with your school. That's going to be really important, but we'll get into that a little bit after the commercial break. Not ready to go there yet, though. That second model that our state superintendent has recommended is the possible AM/PM model, where half of the school attends in the morning, have about an hour-long deep cleaning, and then half the school attends in the afternoon. How do you feel about that model, Renee?
I actually really like that model, and I think it would be really effective, especially as we look at like Bowman High School, who has had that model at their school site already for years, where they have a cohort of morning students and a cohort of afternoon students, And so the great thing about that is we can take what their best practices are and integrate them into our other schools. It's not like it hasn't been done in Santa Clarita. So let's build off a successful model and find out what works for it and transition it to other schools. But I absolutely think that model could work, the AM and the PM times. And personally, if I had an employer, I think if I was able to say, the nice thing about the AM and PM times is you can still work 5 days a week.
Right.
You just have to adjust your hours a little bit. When we're talking about the 2-day rotation, there may be, if you can't find childcare, you might have to have 1 or 2 days a week of working from home or some sort of alternative format to work.
You're right, and it might be more feasible with an AM/PM model for working families that can drop their kids off on the way to work in the morning, maybe have grandma or a babysitter pick them up a little bit later in the day, 11:30, and then try to work out childcare for the afternoon. That might be a little bit more feasible.
Absolutely. I think we're also going to see a lot of families getting really creative about childcare, and I think we're going to see a lot of people working together within the community. Like, okay, if I know one of my friends has to work on Wednesdays and they have a child who needs to get where they need to get and needs a couple hours in the afternoon, we're going to find that we're all going to be working together to make it work. Especially, I know I've been a working mom the whole time that my kids have been in school, and I don't know what I would do without my friends who have been stay-at-home moms who've helped me on different occasions. And so I think what it comes down to is stay-at-home parents and working parents, we all got to work together. That's what it comes down to, and make a plan as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. It goes from that safer at home to that safer together model, working together. That's going to be super important. And then that third model, which I thought was interesting, is that week A, week B model, where, again, half of the school but would attend for a week, and then the other half of the school would attend the following week. What are your thoughts on that one?
I also think that is a totally feasible model. Personally, I think older children would be better in that 1 week off, 1 week on, face-to-face versus virtual model versus younger children. But I do think that would also absolutely work. And the nice thing about that is then you have that opportunity to engage face-to-face, and then you have the time in between to do the thorough cleaning. Okay. One of the challenges with the AM/PM is how do you do that big of a cleaning in between, as opposed to an A week, B week. You've got, the weekends, and then you've got a crew that could come in on the weekends or Friday night or something to get everything 100% clean for the following Monday.
Right, and as parents, we need to remember that it's also industries that are shifting how they do things, and so there may be a school cleaning industry that's going full bore over the weekends. So
absolutely, and that's something I think we also need to be aware of and to be compassionate about. Our school budgets, they're going to have to allocate large sums of money to cleaning supplies, PPE, and the different things that are going to be required. So I just caution parents, and I just ask parents, when wish lists go out, or when teachers are asking for supplies, please listen. Please don't feel like the state budget's going to take care of it, because this year we're going to have so much going to the cleaning supplies that it's going to take away from some of our other resources that will be needed. So please make sure if their supply lists come out, even if your kids are in 100% distance learning model, know that teachers wouldn't ask unless they need to.
Absolutely. So every ream of paper, every whiteboard marker, every bundle of Clorox wipes that you send in is a dime saved where schools can spend it on keeping your kids safer and building a higher quality education. That stuff is so important. Now,
absolutely. Matt, when I was an elementary teacher and when I taught junior high, I averaged between $2,000 to $2,500 out of pocket every year for my classroom as a teacher. But
not uncommon.
There were certain things that I wanted to have access to that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So just know, man, teachers are giving 100% right now. And if you see a teacher relaxing this summer, let them relax. We all need to have some downtime. Like all the kids, like my kids are like vegging out right now, and part of me is like, oh, we got to get busy and do stuff. And then I'm like, no, it's okay to just relax a little bit right now. We've all been through trauma.
Yeah.
And we're in trauma. And we don't know what it's going to look like coming out of it and how people are going to react. So if somebody's sleeping a lot right now, or if somebody's, kind of recovering, allow them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting. You mentioned that listener Christine said that that parents are scared. She's over there. She's going to pop in on on our preschool at Little Eye Leaders today. They're already doing it. Our little biddies are in
Beautiful.
there. Social distancing, and she's going to go in there and see how it's working. That is great. Way to be proactive, Christine. So
I love that idea.
Renee, what about full distance learning? We haven't even gotten to students that may be immunocompromised, that have severe asthma, or maybe they have senior citizens that live at home with them, or other people that are sickly that live at home with them. Can we anticipate another option for families who simply can't get to the space where they can send their kids to school yet?
Absolutely. We should see, I can't blanketly say every district's going to do it at this point, but we should really see the majority of our districts offering that throughout the state of California as an option for families. And that's something that California Department of Education is suggesting, that schools offer more than one version of what it can look like, including a fully distance learning online at-home version for people like that.
Okay. Again, we're talking to educational expert Renee Marshall about the state guidelines on how schools can reopen next fall. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your kids that do have special needs, kids that have language needs, and how we can best prepare them for this new era that we're heading into. We're also going to get to listener Randy's question about what about parents that work full-time? How do they handle things? You are listening to SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers. I'm your host, Matt Watson, on your hometown station, KHTS.
The coronavirus has put us in a position of creating a new normal. Family Law at Home understands their goal is to meet you in the safest place possible, and these days that might be in your own home in a virtual meeting. Family Law at Home will provide you with immediate advice on your family law matters, such as divorce cases, child custody disputes, and domestic violence. It's as easy as going to FamilyLawAtHome.com. You'll choose your own consultation date and be in immediate contact with one of their esteemed attorneys. Family Law at Home handles the legal aspect while you and your family navigate the new chapter in your lives. Go to FamilyLawAtHome.com.
Save water and save money. SCV Water wants to help you find your fit and take advantage of conservation rebate programs that will help you save. Water your landscape more efficiently. Replace your lawn with water-wise plants. Conduct free in-home water surveys. Cover your swimming pool and more. Find the programs that fit your needs and start saving today. Visit conserve.yourscvwater.com to learn more.
That's conserve.yourscvwater.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Goldhurst, Head of Operations for Burger King North America. Throughout this time, we've taken steps to take care of our guests.
And since we know many of your jobs have been affected by this crisis,
we want to help make sure you're taken care of too.
If you are looking for work, we are hiring.
And there's a spot on our team for you.
We know that we'll get through this together, as long as we keep taking care of each other.
For more information, call 253-3283. That's 253-3283. Doesn't it seem like it's been forever since we sat down in a restaurant and enjoyed a meal with our friends and our family? As the clock counts down to the expiration date of the current stay-at-home order, many of our local businesses are working hard getting ready to reopen, and that includes restaurants. Ultimately, it's up to our local health officials and our local restaurants to come up with safety plans moving forward, but we can help too. Plan on no more than an hour of dining out. If we don't linger, it allows more turnover for the restaurant, which in turn provides more business for them and more tips for servers who are out on the front line. It's a win-win. Together, we can create a new normal for Santa Clarita that's safe and enjoyable.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers with Matt Watson. We're talking this morning with educational consultant and expert Renee Marshall about the state guidelines on how schools can reopen next fall. You know, I promised listener Randy that we would get to his question when we came back, Renee. Wanted to ask you again about working parents. What about working parents that, don't have the time? We're going to be in the office. We simply can't take our kids to school only 2 days a week. We have to count on schools as not just a high quality education, but also for the daily child supervision.
Well, it's going to be a little tricky. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to pretend like it's going to be this clean, super easy thing. But schools understand this and communities understand this, and I anticipate that every district is looking for different options of what would be safe for their children, and will advertise what's available. So hopefully ideally there'll be some options on site or on other sites within the district. If we see that, though, in terms of childcare, we're going to see a lot of like outdoor activities. We're going to see maybe if we have like an after-school program that's there simultaneously, they may be in the covered commons, or they're not going to be taking up as many indoor spaces. They're going to be doing a lot more outdoor spaces. But I do believe, Randy, that the districts will be looking for very concrete ways to make sure that people have the child care they need and that it is economically feasible for families to have that support. I also think this is going to be a prime time where we will see private companies try to swoop in and come and get some business. And so a lot of it's going to be, you as the parent looking critically at what is going to work well for your family. Please know there absolutely will be options. And I feel so lucky because I've actually known Randy a long time. I've known Randy since before she had kids. She was one of my kids at COC in my classes in early childhood education. So I can promise you, Randy, we will absolutely have solutions within our community because we are a working community and we are a community that also has to commute. And so especially as people get back into more of a traditional work model, we will absolutely have resources available. Absolutely. And also, just so you know, within the California Department of Education, they also specialize in after school and what options are available via after school. And so I'd be happy to mention to CDE that parents are concerned about what after school is going to look like and the child care aspect. Because one thing great about California Department of Education, they are incredibly responsive. I emailed them saying, hey, we need some more information about special ed, English language learners. Within 24 hours, I was connected to the Director of Communications for Department of Education, and he's emailing me all these things. So this is a group that they want to help. So if we tell them there's a need, they're going to be responsive to it.
That is great, and I want to get to some of those things that you just mentioned. I just want to remind parents, very important for you to advocate with your schools and with the California Department of Education, but also advocate with your employer. Maybe you're used to going into the office 5 days a week, and maybe you can work remotely a couple days a week, or maybe you can flex with your hours a little bit. So work with your employer as well, and see if they can provide a little bit of flexibility. I wanted to get to listener Deja as well. She's asking, is the California Department of Education looking at how these different learning models are going to impact teachers?
California Department of Education always has teachers at the forefront of everything that they do. To create these guidelines, it's not just a group of administrators and health professionals that are putting these together. That's one thing I can tell you for sure, because when I'm working, anytime I've worked with Department of Education, I had a chance last summer, I was on some transition committees for our superintendent, and I would walk in the room and there'd be like 50 people from all different areas. They'd have preschool teachers. They just would have everybody. And so they really are an inclusive group that is looking at what's best for families, what's best for children, and what's best for our teachers. And please know that teacher safety is absolutely paramount in this. We have got to keep our teachers healthy.
Yes.
And so we will have really strict regulations about how we're going to do that.
And again, Deja, make sure that you're advocating as well. Make sure that you're reaching out to the CDE and giving them your input. So, Renee, you mentioned that the CDE gave you some feedback on what special education services and English learner services are going to look like. How are those programs going to work?
I think it's really impressive to see all that they're doing in terms of special education and second language learners. In terms of special ed, there were some districts and some schools that within like a week or two were 100% up and running and offering services for students. And then there were other schools and other districts that there was some significant gaps.
Okay.
And so what we know moving into fall is gaps are no longer going to be allowable. And not that they were allowable in spring, but we kind of excused gaps in spring. But when it comes to special education and our students who are in special education, they have very specific rights that fall under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act. And so it is by law, as educators, we have to provide a free and appropriate public education for our students, and specifically our special ed students. So we're going to seize this opportunity and develop like an integrated plan, because we need to make sure that schools are not just just opening up for their general ed population, but from the moment that they're doing their planning, they're embedding their special education students, families, and making a plan at the same time. So you really want an integrated plan. One thing we're going to see is there will be PPE for students with disabilities. If we know that students are medically fragile or have some other reason where they cannot wear the PPE, there will be alternatives or kind of other ways where it will be allowable for that child to still be within the context. There will be very special planning that goes into place for our students who are medically fragile or who have a compromised immunization system. What is really essential when it comes to special ed right now? Families, if you do not have a current IEP or you need to have an IEP meeting, and I would get that going as soon as possible, which is kind of tricky because we're on summertime now. But it's important to know that the individualized education plan, that is the roadmap for every child with a disability. And during these challenging times, when you have that roadmap, it's technically also a contract in terms of what services that child is supposed to get from us as educators. So it's really important to have that documentation as current as possible, so that way you know exactly what you're going to have in terms of extra resources for your child who is in special education starting in fall.
Renee, that music is telling me that we're out of time. So important for parents to...
sorry.
That's okay. So important for parents to advocate. I'm going to ask producer Sarah to post some of the local school board meeting times in the chat there. Get to your school board meeting, whether it's virtual or in person, and advocate for your needs. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Renee. So valuable. Make sure that you're joining us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. I'm your host, Matt Watson, on your hometown station, KHTS.